Oh,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Nice, like your shirt.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks
Old
for having me.
school. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hopping on. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I was excited to chat with you. This album is freaking amazing. When I got it sent, uh, I took me about 5 seconds into it, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's set this up."
Thank you. That really means a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's been a while since you guys have put anything out. So what's the problem? Busy, I'm sure. Life has been kind of crazy since 2020, but I know you guys had some years before that you had open too.
Yeah, for sure. It's it's been quite an arduous journey. Especially like, we put out our first record in 2007, second one in 2009. We did a lot of heavy touring during those years. Our EP came out in 2012, which caught the attention of James Hetfield and got us to do that Orion Fest with Metallica, which is still mind-blowing.
Crazy.
Um, things were going great. Things were going awesome. And then we had a lineup change right at the beginning of 2014. And, commitments were tough. We had a lot going on and to be expected. So that was like the beginning of slowing things down for us. And we had a whole record at that point, written, recorded, ready to go. And
Wow. Even back then.
yeah, yeah, we had a whole
Wow.
record that we scrapped and we decided,
Oh,
yeah, we lost two members. We lost our lead guitar player and our bass player right after we came back home from being out with Trivium and Devil Driver. And so we got home and we played this one-off show with All That Remains, and it was awesome. It was great. We played a hometown show, and then it's a few days later that I got a message from our lead guitar player saying, he wouldn't be able to, fulfill the obligations going forward, except for the few shows that he knew about. And we're still good friends to this day. And so that was kind of the beginning, 2014. It was kind of challenging. So then by the fast forward, we scrapped that record and we started writing something new. And by the time the end of 2015 rolled around, our drummer suffered cardiac arrest and was in a coma.
oh gosh, that's terrible.
Yeah, and survived. It's like a 7% survival rates. It's very low, and he was very fortunate that his then wife at the time was present and was able to perform CPR and call 911. So we took a few years to try and, get back on track, and we waited until he got the clear bill of health from his doctor, and we did a couple tours with our friend Jay Fitz from Overcast on drums, and so it was slow going. And then we started writing another record because we had so much to say, and we experienced another lineup change, and so it was a lot of things going on. And then we had a record basically written, and then the pandemic hit, and we had some stuff planned with Guar. We had this first sold out show with Guar, like sold out in like 15 minutes in New York City, and we were excited, but because of the pandemic, everything got canceled. So we kind of reassessed and we released a version of Last Ghost to Kill in 2020. And then we just kind of recalibrated and went through some things. And a lot of us all went through some personal things. I went through a divorce. Our drummer went through a divorce. I lost my mother. My drummer lost his mother.
Oh my
And then we
God.
had some positive stuff happen. And then, Kurt, our guitar player, he got married, now has a child. And a lot of stuff, a lot of things started happening in a positive direction. Finally, for once, we needed to go on an upswing. And so we had a lot to write about. So we rewrote a lot of things since we had the time. And then we felt the time was right. And that's where Pillar of Fire really comes from, is just a lot of those trials and tribulations. And just there's always, as cheesy as it sounds, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. But from an esoteric level, that pillar of fire, it guides you in that fire through the darkness, no matter what. And fire creates and destroys. It can do all of these things. So even through antiquity, through ancient cultures, fire is just so prevalent. And for us, not only is it just a reflection of that fire within us and that passion that we have to continue to do what we're doing, but it's definitely a beacon that keeps us going and motivated even through the darkest of times. As cliche and as cheesy as that may sound, it just really summed up like how we were feeling, and everything that we had been through, that at the end of the day, it's really about our passion and our expression. And that's why we make music, that this is like cathartic for us.
Of
So
course, yeah.
sorry for the long-winded roundabout.
No, that's a beautiful answer. I love that I mean, I like that deep stuff. And even the cliche things are cliche for a reason, like they're not things that people have said for years because they're not true. And
Right.
so no, I that's a beautiful answer, and thank you for going into depth there, because that really expresses a lot of actually questions I've been wanting to ask you on this interview anyway, so it just kind of segues right in. I'm assuming you're the lyrical genius behind the music.
You're too kind with the term genius, but I write the lyrics.
That's a humble response, of course. Um, but really, now you're already kind of telling me where the lyrics are coming from. Um, have you always been like a deep thinker, or are you like a big time reader, or do you
Yeah.
like documentaries, or where because
All
really
of the
you
above.
have to
Yes.
pull from different parts to have that kind of mind, I think. Maybe not, but
Yeah, all of the above. I love to read. I love documentaries. And ever since I was a kid, my mom and I would always talk and have deep conversations with her, and she'd always throw the term, old soul around, all the time. And as a kid, I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew the term, and then as you get older, you realize that like when you look at the world maybe a little bit more uniquely than maybe your peers do, and when you kind of feel maybe a little out of step and that you don't really fit in with most groups, but I get along with everybody, but yet I don't think the same way and I
uh,
see things a little differently. And
mhm,
so for me, like metal, hard rock, like there was something about that genre that always spoke to me, feeling feeling like an outsider or an outcast. There was something about that music. And then, you start going to shows and you realize there's such a community that
mhm,
like welcomes all walks of life and brings everybody together. And that like, oh, okay, all right, we're all misfits. We're all like outcasts and out of step and thinking differently. And we're creative individuals. And I found a home in that. And I want to express myself this way. And it's one of the greatest things that I've ever had and discovered in my life. And I'm grateful that, my family's always been so supportive of it throughout everything, and it's just such a beautiful thing. So reading all the time and documentaries, I just love learning all the time.
mhm, yeah. Um, I have a very similar background in story. I come from a small town in Idaho. So obviously metal is not like super big here. I don't know.
Sure.
I'd say we have a pretty good metal community, but where I'm from, I was one of very few metalheads, and probably the only female that at least that I knew back home. And so yeah, it was always feeling very much different, and I agree that there definitely is a community, and it is a community of not only all inclusivity for the most part. um
Sure.
there's definitely some hiccups, which
Sure.
just goes with life. But also yeah, just kind of home that you feel understood and feel, and it is a deeper music. It's always shocking to me when people call it satanic, because it's so far from that in every stretch of the word that I just like, you haven't clearly like tried to even understand it, because
Right.
it's still, my son is a metalhead. He's 16 and he still has friends. Yeah, I love it. He plays guitar. He's absolutely incredible. The kid plays for hours every day. He's insane. Um, but it's the same thing even with his friends. Like his friends' families, will say that it's satanic. And I'm like, yeah, Gojira's trying to save the planet. And you guys,
Yes. Right. We're trying to make change. We're talking about things that matter. We
yes,
care, we see things differently, and we
yes,
need creative minded people to change the world because if nothing changes, nothing changes.
yes. So with that, tell me a little bit about some of the lyrics. And I have a couple songs here that I wanted to talk about, and Eternal Light was one of them.
Ah,
That was the first one that really, really stuck out to me. And I think it's because it's a little bit different than the rest of them. So
yeah,
tell me a little bit about that one.
sure. It's a tribute to my mom.
Mm.
It's it's just whew. um my mom was my best friend, and if it weren't for her, my dad too, but my mom and I had this just such a special bond. And like I feel like most loving, caring, you know, parents, and it happens, but self-professed mama's boy. And my mom just through everything, growing up, I try to navigate a lot of different feelings and emotions. And full disclosure, I have anxiety. I have obsessive compulsive disorder, like clinically, and I was undiagnosed as a kid, and I didn't know. It was hard to process these thoughts and these feelings and these all of these different things. And somehow, in some way, music kind of just gave me this outlet to make sense of things. And I remember, just kind of like feeling the music, and it was something that kind of helped me kind of exercise those emotions. And once I started kind of writing down, because I want to write my own lyrics and things like that. Little did I know at such a young age that it was actually something so therapeutic to be able to, emote and get all of these thoughts and feelings out on paper, and then try and take them and put them into prose and put them into whether it's, poetry or it's a song and quatrains and things like that. And an eternal light to me, um, you know, no matter what, I believe I mean, the laws of thermodynamics say, and the second law is that energy can't be created nor destroyed. It just moves and transfers. And I firmly believe that that energy of my mother is always around. It's always present. And even genetically, I think about it even on like that scientific quantum level too, is that my DNA and my brother, I have an older brother, our DNA is made up of both of our parents. So in essence, we are carrying our ancestors with us, no matter where we go. And so that part of that DNA is always with us, those thoughts, those feelings. And then you have nature versus nurture. And you also realize that how they reared you in this world impacts your perspective and your perception of the world, along with what you develop through your own life experience. And so with an eternal light, my mother will always be my, like my guiding light that no matter where I go, and there's a lyric in there, standing on stairways of forever. And I just think about if we're all kind of in a proverbial sense, like through allegory, if we're all kind of just like passersby and we're walking this spiral staircase. I like to think of it as going up and evolving and moving up
Yeah.
in an upwards direction. I don't know why, I just do. Um, Reflection of, it's like I think about all these things, and it's like reflection of connection since birth. And those are the lyrics, because like no matter what, I've been connected with her. I spent 9 months and change or whatever in the womb, and there's something that has to happen
Yeah.
on such a deep level
Hmm.
that, it transcends human comprehension. There's
Hmm.
a reason why when you look at your son and you see him playing guitar or you see him doing those things, you never knew that feeling until your son was in you and out into this world. And I'm sure it's safe to say those things, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so to me, the greatest honor that I can do for my mother is to remember her and carry that with me and be the best example I can be, because I represent her and my father too, of course. He's still with us, and I have to do my best to always make her proud in my heart, in my opinion. And she was such a fan of the music, always encouraged me to create and do those things. So Eternal Light, long story short, but she deserves it. Um, it's an absolute tribute to my mother.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm actually a mental health therapist. Um, and I have anxiety as well. I have panic disorder. So I teach it or I teach about it and I experience it as well. And absolutely writing about tough things is a good way of processing. Music is one of the best forms. Listening, and I can only imagine how much more creating for therapeutic releases. And is that a song that you're planning on doing live? And if so, how are you going to do it with that? I mean, if you fall
Right.
apart, you fall apart. That's okay. That's the beauty of
Y-
music. But
Yeah, right. And we talked about that that we've talked about doing it, and we have this really big special event coming up in the end of November. We're doing this album release show, and the idea came up, and full disclosure, I don't know that I'm ready just
yeah,
yet.
of
Uh,
course,
you know,
totally understandable.
but and for me, like, while lyrically, I know that it's inspired, and it's a tribute to my mother, and those lyrics were written before our drummer Waterman lost his mom. It's something that I try to write in a way that's universal so that someone can get something from it and interpret it in their own way, or maybe hold on to that and maybe think about things or life, maybe, maybe in a different way. And that's fine. For me, it's and for us as a band, it's our art. And as long as we're happy with it and we've done what we've wanted to do with it and we're proud of it, if people love it and like it, or even if they hate it, that's fine too. But for us, like, everything else is gravy after that, because it's our expression, and that's why we do it. And we can make that choice. Do we want, is it expression, or are you seeking, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with if you're seeking fame, fortune, making it like a regular gig. I get that. It's just very different, because then you have to appeal to a lot of what people want, and it's what's popular or what's trending, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you choose that path, like, hey, all the power to you. For us, it's not our path. For us, it's about the art, it's about the expression. So you know that's why we do it. And so when it resonates with somebody, and that frequency and that vibration, or just the lyrics, something about it speaks to someone, gosh, that to me is like, you can't you can't put a price on it. You can't quantify that. That is, to me personally, that's more than any kind of, and I'm sure it'd be cool if you got a Grammy, I'm sure. But like, to me, like, getting messages like through Instagram or Facebook, when people say, like, our music has helped them through something, like, oh my gosh, like, that's huge for me. Like, that's like, are you kidding me? Like, wow, I'm honored, because I think of the heroes that I listened to that helped me through those things. So
Yeah, you're therapist in your own way.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So when you get those messages, that I like to ask, and I've only probably the last few months been asking people that really have meaningful lyrics that, aren't that are trying to say something or that are trying to pull an emotional cord, when you get those messages or when you talk to people face to face that are telling you maybe some hardships that they've been through that, your music has gotten them through, how are you able to protect yourself from carrying their stuff?
Ooh, that's a great question. Especially as someone who's very much an empath and empathetic
I
and
can
can,
tell.
oh my gosh, it's heavy.
Mhm.
That's a great question. I have to take a lot of time sometimes to just kind of decompress.
Mhm.
Um, I absorb everything. I feel everything. I feel for other people. I mean, I've hugged people that have lost loved ones too, and you know, you feel for them. You feel their hurt and their pain. It's that's that human connection. There's something so unique about that. And that's the one special thing I feel that separates us from what we see as, like, what we would know as, like, the animal kingdom. That thing that makes us so innately different, as a species. And that that is love, and that is understanding. It's compassion. It's this feeling of this energy of human connection that is unparalleled. That's why we do this. That's why when you go to a concert and you feel something, you listen to a song, or you maybe look at a painting and you see something and you feel something, or you get goosebumps. There's something to be said about that. There's nothing quite like it, and you can't really quantify it all the
Mhm.
time. It's just a feeling. And so in those moments, to answer your question, I feel it. I feel it in those moments. And then if it does happen, which it has, before we have to go play a show, like I have to kind of go clear my head anyway, and I kind of do my like vocal warm-up routine, and it's kind of meditative anyway and kind of centers me anyway. So I found that helps. In the early years of not realizing it or doing that, then I'd kind of go up with a cloudy head and not really
Mhm.
feel like myself, or
Mhm.
so, with age comes wisdom, I suppose.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Right.
And with experiences.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Um, so on the other side of that, what are some things that you do for self-care to be able to just kind of rebalance yourself or just balance yourself in general, whether you're I know it's been a while since you guys have been touring and stuff, but whether you're touring or whether you're at home or whether you're working or whatever.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, for me, it's like decompression is in a lot of different forms. Sometimes it's meditation. It's just
Mm,
sitting in silence. Practicing silence is one of my absolute favorite things to do.
so
It's
tough,
yeah,
but
it's just
so helpful.
yes. Oh my gosh. And y- the sun can start going down and I'm in the house, and whether the blinds are drawn or not, it's like it's getting dark, and I have there's no need for me to like put on a light or put on a candle or anything. I'm just sitting there, and it can be dark. It's quiet, and I'm just clearing my head. And that for me helps a lot. Reading helps as well too, for inspiration, but also for grounding. Um, I was really good about it. I haven't done it in a long time with yoga. I did a lot of stretching, a lot of yoga for a long time. Um, It's been a long time. I also I have a podcast as well that I do, and that takes up a lot of time. The music, I work. I have a lot of different things that I do. So I'm always trying to find when I do have those moments for self-care, even if it's just like 20 minutes. It's what's something that's going to either bring me peace or going to bring me joy. I typically go with peace more than joy, because the peace is what recenters me again and helps ground me and get me, able to do the many things that I need to do.
Absolutely. So two questions there. Podcast, is it music related or is it like philosophy, quantum physics, and all the stuff?
All of the above. So that
Oh,
was the one of the challenging things for me. So it falls under an umbrella of three C's: conjecture, counterculture, and consciousness. And so I've had quantum physicists on,
oh
to,
wow.
metal musicians, to, ancient civilization, like anthropologists. I've had Burton C. Bell on, of Fear Factory fame, to Marcos from POD, for like music friends, even Trevor from Unearth, to
Wow.
gosh, I've had like Billy Carson, from Forbidden Knowledge, to Freddie Silva. I also have one of my dear friends. Gosh, I've had so many friends on there actually. So there's a bunch on there. It's on YouTube. It's called Into the Deep
So I
with
was just
Jay
gonna
Costa.
ask, into the deep. I'm gonna write that down. Not that
Yeah,
I this is like obviously recorded and I'll be able to just watch it and know,
sure.
but
Sure. Yeah, Into the Deep with Jay Costa, and it was my dear friend George Richter and I do it. He produces and helps, and he actually mastered our new album, and he remastered our back catalog. Good friend of ours. We've toured together for years. Um, he's come out and done sound for us, and he and I, along with our now current original bass player Eric Tavares, me, Eric, and George have like a side project called Piscean Black, where it's kind of a different departure from Thy Will Be Done. It's the way I describe it is it's kind of like The Doors meets Neurosis meets Soundgarden.
Oh,
Yeah.
ooh, that sounds like that'd be really good.
Yeah. So, and it's like I do some singing in that versus like screaming and
Oh,
yeah,
hmm.
another outlet. It's not like we're going to be playing shows or doing things, but it's like more of like a cathartic project, creative project that we started it before the pandemic. So we don't, George lives in Connecticut and Eric's in Mass. I'm a Rhode Island guy, so like we don't always get a chance to get together. So when we do, um, make some magic happen. So it's a lot of fun, and it's like obviously that'll be done is takes precedence over things and is a priority. But I See in Black is we've got some new music that's going to be coming out probably early next year. So I'm really excited about that.
Nice. We'll have to chat again when that comes around.
Heck yeah. And I'm
Um,
also writing a book for somebody too. I
oh
keep
my
myself busy.
gosh, yeah, you do. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, some of you musicians slash artists are. I just talked to Aaron. Oh my gosh, I just totally. Oh, I feel awful that I just. He's from My Dying Bride, but he
Oh
Hi,
yeah.
Hi Parasite. I couldn't remember the new project, and I just interviewed him about it. I do a lot, and I went to Disneyland in between time, and so my brain is little.
Right.
I think I'm still in Disneyland.
Still there. The Magic
Right.
Kingdom is there. Right.
But
Yeah.
he same thing. He like does a lot of photography, and then he does all different types of art, and then he's doing like poetry reading to like music. I'm just like amazing things, amazing things.
Uh,
So yeah, some of you guys, man, you just stay super busy. Um, so writing a book for someone, you said?
yeah, my good
Oh,
friend Stuart Taylor, he's a photographer and he grew up with the Pantera guys and we got to know Stuart and through Stuart we did a lot of stuff. We done a lot of Ride for Dime festivals and we got to meet Vinnie Paul, rest in peace. And we were invited back to Vinnie Paul's house and being friends with Stuart, we went to the house and got to see a lot of cool stuff, hear some cool stories. Stuart's got a lot of great stories and he's got all these old photographs. Like Stuart, if you've ever seen photographs of like James Hetfield and Dimebag hanging out together,
mhm.
those are Stuart's photos.
Oh, crazy. Okay.
Yeah, like back in the day, like they look like they're in a bedroom. Those are Stuart's photos. And
I just saw one because me and my son just flew to Seattle. Is what day was it? August 30th for the Metallica Pantera show at Lumen Field. It's the first time my son got to see either one of them. It's the first time I got to see Pantera, even though it wasn't Pantera, but it was.
sure, sure. Right,
um,
right.
but that was the first time I had seen a picture of James and Dime was my son had found was right after that show. So that's crazy.
Yeah. And the Stewart, he was friends with those guys. He was in the Pantera home videos. If you ever watch those,
Mhm.
Stewart's the guy who they're popping the zit on his rear end.
It's been a long time. It's been probably the
Yeah.
90s since I last saw him, but
Right on.
that's
Yeah.
funny.
So Stewart's a good human being and he's got a lot of great photographs and we've been talking. So yeah, I'm helping write an autobiography for him and or biography, I should say. And yeah, just gathering the stories and kind of the idea is probably like a coffee table book with some stories and some photos to accompany it. So yeah, we're kind of like in the midst of that right now, and probably see that in I'd say probably fall or winter of 2025.
Nice. That's so cool. Also with reading, what are some of your favorites that you've read over the years?
Woo! Where do
I
I begin?
know. If
Ah,
you saw what room I'm in right now, I have a library. I have so many books. It's borderline insanity. I have a ridiculous amount of books.
oh, I love that. Well, I've got novels that like, growing up, like J.D. Salinger spoke volumes to me
Oh,
growing up.
Catherine in the
Um,
Rye is my all-time favorite.
Ah, yes.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it.
It was
I
one
have
of
a
those.
cat named Salinger.
Oh, love that. Yeah, it was a pivotal book for me growing up. Um, Eli Wiesel with Night, another great book. Waiting for Godot, another great book that really changed my life. Gosh, what do I begin? 1984. There's so many. Brave New World, Huxley.
Uh,
A lot of those pivotal books, and then like. And then a lot of like nonfiction and things like just on history. I love history. I love ancient civilizations. One of my favorite authors, I also had him on my podcast, is Freddie Silva. Actually, yeah, I got a bunch of books over here anyway. I won't bore you. I got tons of
I
books over
know
there, tons over there.
me. You are will never bore me
Oh,
when it comes to books ever. Yeah, the people that are watching might get bored. I will not get bored.
oh, I've just got so many. And then I'm really into like esoteric stuff. I get into like ancient civilization, ancient cultures. So yeah, I'm all over the place, but I do love ancient history. Yeah, I'm all over the place. Faulkner is another great one. Hemingway, Poe, and then being a Rhode Island guy, H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh, I did a paper on him for college, and it was an intense one. I didn't know a whole lot about him before, but of course the darker part of me, I grew up watching horror movies. I grew up reading R.L. Stine Fear Streets. Like the stories that I wrote in school nowadays would probably be a call home to the parents.
hi. Hello, we need to talk.
We need to check on her mental health, or we need to keep
Yeah.
an eye on her. Um, but yeah, so H.P. Lovecraft was someone I was fascinated with, and yeah, he's an interesting human for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. Also, a
I
lot of
mean,
classics.
yeah, yeah, all over the place, and but yeah, but I find myself I always kind of just kind of gravitate back to usually if there's something with like historical context, I'm a big fan of it. Like Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Um, love it's just the yeah, I love it. If there's something esoteric or historical about it, or maybe like um maybe unpopular history too, like also fun facts, weird, zany, eerie stuff, especially being from, New England, there's all kinds of tales and stories and yeah, it's just fun. We have a great bunch of mythos around us and tales and folklore, so it makes for some interesting content.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I just chatted with Cheney from Entheos a few weeks ago, and she we have developed a friendship over the years, and so we just kind of had just like a fun little chat type thing. And
Mhm.
she had asked if I'd ever had paranormal experience. And so we got on a whole conversation about that. And when you were discussing your mom and the energy exchange and everything that goes with that, I that's where my mind popped to. I was like, oh, I wonder if he's had any like
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I have. I've had a few things, and it's usually with lights. It's like the battery operated like candles that we have in the living room. It was interesting that you have to literally switch them on. They weren't switched on, and they would, talking about my mom, and it was just like vroom, 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 and then be on. And it took a few times to really notice that. And then I had conversations with it and like talking, and it would like get brighter and go down. Then at a restaurant, there was it was like this, I don't know, it's like the cantina, but it was attached to a brewery slash like I don't know, gastropub, if you will. And so the cantina was closed, but like there's a stairwell going up into it, but like it was just closed because I think it was like a Sunday or something. I don't even remember what day of the week, but they were closed. They weren't open yet. But there was a light. There was like these string lights that were in this glass cylinder, for effect, for aesthetics. And I was talking about my mom, and literally the lights that were not like I couldn't see what was going on with them. They just came on out of nowhere as I was talking about my mom. And it just okay, could be coincidence. I could try and
No.
debunk that, but I'm convinced. So
Yeah, I see lights with me too. When our friend had passed away, every time I talk about him, the lights in the bathroom would flicker, and I kept thinking, oh, I need to change those bulbs out. And finally, I was like, it's only happening when I'm talking about him. So that doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure I mean, when you talk about yeah, physics, there has to be a thin veil, right, that connects. It just makes sense. I know some
yeah,
people think that's crazy, but it makes sense to me.
it does. And as and it's interesting because there was a point in time in history where, you know, I using the term loosely, but there was a point in time where like religion and science were one. Religion,
Mm,
science, and art were this thing, and it was then somehow along the way it became divided for a myriad of reasons, right? And so, but what we're finding is that there's science that's still coming out, and we're learning about quantum physics, we're learning string theory, we're learning about sound and vibration, and we're learning about, oh gosh, these allegories and these stories that we've heard about can be relayed allegorically to what this science is now telling us. And it's fascinating
it
in
is.
a myriad of ways. So,
Yes, I agree. I agree. I'm really fascinated with quantum physics too, and I've read a few books on it. And yeah, it's you're like, okay, here's the science behind what used to be deemed as quote unquote crazy, right?
right. Witchcraft, heretical, whatever, insert, different terms for something that maybe wasn't understood.
Yeah,
And whether it's technology, whether it is whatever it is, there are many indigenous groups that have worked well with the land, and there are all over the world, globally, where people were able to harness and work with earth energy.
yeah,
And you take Nikola Tesla, who was telling people like the earth has free energy, by the way, and because someone had an agenda, see ya,
yeah,
and because it's the route of the almighty dollar, and someone wanted to continue to make money off of it. So we know that there's energy out there, we know there's free energy, we know that there is something about the earth, we know that there's something greater than what we see on the surface level, right? So I feel like through antiquity a lot of different groups of civilizations have experienced these things and have been able to tap into that.
yeah. So cool. It's such a fascinating subject. I know we're like branching clear away from the album, but I get so excited to talk to people.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry. We
no,
just went
no.
into the deep.
I'm following right along with it because I love having these conversations and you can't have them with everybody. And so I get really excited and so then I kind of veer off too.
Tangentville, USA. I came here for the music, and now they're talking about ancient civilizations.
I,
Yeah, I know.
I had talked to Erin at intervals and we got on brain science
Nice.
because I'm super into neuroscience and he's super and all their music is very neuroscience based. And so
Yeah.
we went on this tangent on brain science and I was just like, oh my gosh, these poor people that are watching it are probably just like, I'm done. It's too much. But yeah,
Awesome.
let's veer back. You have a picture in your promo that has someone has a Metallica shirt on, someone has a Gojira shirt on. I couldn't tell for sure what shirt you were wearing, but then I saw Kenny Rogers.
Yes, the gambler. Kurt's wearing the gambler. Yes, Kenny Rogers.
My last name is Rogers, and so I was like, "Hey, it's
Oh,
my uncle." Not really, but but yeah, that made me laugh. Was that like, did you guys just throw on whatever and go and take the picture, or was he like
oh, he
making a
loves Kenny Rogers.
statement?
Yeah, no, he loves Kenny Rogers. We listen to a
That's
lot. We listen
awesome.
to all kinds of stuff. I mean, I could probably pull out some vinyl right now. I've got like Merle Haggard right there. I've got
Oh, nice.
Chris Christopherson, R.I.P. Oh,
Uh,
I'm devastated. Oh
yeah,
my God,
it's such a sad one.
heartbroken. I've got Culture Club right here on vinyl. Look at
Oh
this.
my gosh.
Look at this. No shame in my game. That's an original. That's an original copy right there.
Oh
Oh,
my
look at that. Still
gosh.
sealed with the sticker. No,
Wow, that's gonna be worth something.
yeah,
Or probably already is.
I got no shame. Come on. It's about
Hey,
music.
yeah, you shouldn't. It's music.
I got
And people who say they don't enjoy Culture Club are lying.
They're lying. I've got Waylon Jennings right here. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like
You
we
got the
got it all.
Outlaws.
Yeah. So, we got it all. I got Crowbar down. I got a bunch of stuff
Oh,
because I've got
nice.
a record player in here with vinyl. Then out over there's like a jam room behind me with like a Papasan and like speakers and another record player. So, yeah, all kinds of,
Nice.
yeah,
So
music.
speaking of vinyl, I know that that's very expensive to have done. You guys are kind of just making your return, but is that something you guys are thinking about doing?
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. We're gonna be doing vinyl for I know we're gonna do a reissue on one of the old albums, and we're
Cool.
also gonna do the new record at some point on vinyl.
Cool.
Yeah.
Also, when are you going to refill the merch in Bandcamp? I was like, everything's sold out.
I know and we did the pre-orders for the album, so I was like, okay, cool. Like I'll, we'll figure it out, put it up there, put a good chunk of numbers up, and we were pleasantly surprised at how quickly, you
Yay.
know,
That's
it,
amazing.
I'm just so grateful because we started a record label in 2012 to put out the EP and, got worldwide distribution and everything was fine. But I learned a lot, like getting CDs manufactured. I had to work with a distribution company. I had to learn like how to like ship them, what I needed to do to like different distributors and like different stores. So like I had to work with like FYE. I had to work with like Newberry Comics, which is like a regional company, Bull
I like
Moose,
Newberry.
like Amoeba Music, and like all these different like you know, and then like even like Barnes and Noble, Borders at the time, they were still open. So like all these different companies, like I had to have like all these spreadsheets. And now you walk into like an FYE and it's like their CD section is like it's 5 by 5 and it's like all like the modern hits, of course, like T Swift's on the end cap and you've got some K-pop there and all like big hits. Like you get like Dark Side of the Moon to like Beastie Boys and Dr. Dre. And so it's like there's not much room for a lot of independent artists. And so because people aren't buying albums. So I didn't know. I was like, well, like we'll put some CDs up because people were asking for it. But I didn't expect to sell out of the pre-sales. So pleasantly
So
surprised.
awesome. So
Yeah.
awesome. So well deserved too. So
Oh,
that was the pre-sales. That was before people even knew what you guys, I mean, obviously they know what you guys do, but knew what you guys were doing 15 years later, 12 years later.
yeah. So we put out the album digitally. And so
Oh,
then,
you put it out digitally
yeah, it
first
was
and
out.
then
It's
you,
out. It
oh,
was all
okay.
up. Yeah. So people could hear it. And so we were still getting requests. People like, oh, is it going to be on
Oh.
CD? Yeah, I guess so.
All
We'll put it
right.
in
We'll figure
CD.
it out.
I guess we'll do that. So we did. And
That's
yeah, people are stoked. And they're, if you secured a CD, thank you so very much. Truly grateful. We probably do a reprint at some point, but we're notorious for doing like small batch stuff anyway. Even our first album, there was a point in time where our 2007 album that came out on Stillborn Records, it was on eBay and it was on Amazon for like $900 because
how
it was
couldn't
out of
find it
print. You
anywhere.
you couldn't find it. It's come
Mhm.
down now since like the music is available on streaming platforms because we
Mhm.
didn't have our music on streaming platforms for the longest time. And
Wow.
so we put out the back catalog at the beginning of this year as part of a ramp up for releasing the new album.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, you guys have a album release show, and I saw that you had two shows, but I saw on one of them, and this took me down a whole other rabbit hole that Beyond the Embrace is playing.
Yes.
I love Beyond the Embrace, and so I'm like, they're back.
Yes. They're back.
Amazing,
Love that
amazing.
band. Good
They're
friends of ours.
Oh my gosh, they're so underrated. You guys are so underrated too. Like
Oh,
there's some incredible, incredible bands out there that Unprocessed from Germany is another one that I'm like, what 12-foot ninja, which unfortunately aren't
yes.
going anymore, are so underrated. I'm like, there's these incredible bands that are out there that just not a lot of people know about. And
Yeah, it comes down
Beyond the
to
Embrace
it
is one of
really
them.
it comes down to, if depending on who you're working with, right? What management, what booking agency, and it's a very tight-knit community and very small circles. So, when you start seeing like different tours and like there's like these packages and like you see like these bands and sometimes you might not necessarily think like they would work together, but it's because they have the same management or they have the same booking agency or both. And so there's a lot of these packages. And
Oh,
so the optics are that it's like, oh, this band's more popular. It's like, oh no, this bigger band that they manage and then the smaller band that they manage, they're just putting them together because they're trying to help out the smaller band too. And so a lot of people don't know the inner workings of it. And I get it, but it's definitely a lot of like networking, who and
yeah.
labels, and we've turned down recording contracts in the
Mhm.
past. We own our music, we own our
Oh,
publishing, and you know, it was a no-brainer for us to, especially when we started seeing like album sales for everybody were dipping. And when you own your own music, we've had like 30 seconds of music in a Pontiac commercial, and we had Yeah, it was awesome. And it like bought
Oh,
us a trailer and it was like, oh, cool.
oh wow.
It's cool when you own your own music. And so, that's the thing. For us, it's about separating and not having a middle person because we want it to be almost direct to a listener and feel um, as organic as possible and not necessarily, and there's nothing against anybody who chooses to work with labels. There's a lot of great labels out there and there's a lot of benefits, but we do everything in-house. I do all the album design and graphic arts. Kurt did all the engineering for this new record. He and our lead guitar player mixed the album. And like I said, my friend George Richter for Adestis Audio, he did the mastering. So everything's in-house. I take care of the record label. We have distribution company. I take care of all the day-to-day stuff. So yeah, it's as DIY as you can get. And it's cool because we're at a day and age where, people can support bands directly in a different way because, stream gets you maybe 0.007
Yeah,
cents. And, it's absurd. But
it is.
at the end of the day, it's like if you're discovering a band, share it with your friends, tell people
Yeah,
about them, share their content on social media if you see it, because that's really going to help them reach more people.
yeah,
And it's not necessarily about the money, but bands put all this time, effort, and money. So like, what kind of return on investment are they
yeah,
seeing? It's challenging. We did a
yeah,
lot of tours for like nothing. We
yeah,
were like $20 between five guys trying to eat every night and, breaking down and,
yeah,
playing with these big bands. And people don't realize it's like, yeah, we're not making money right now. We're losing money and we're
yeah,
not working our jobs,
yeah.
you
No,
know?
I am very passionate about this subject. Music is I mean, it saves all of us. It's a language we all speak. It's something we all can understand, whether you speak the same language or not. It's still something that a Barg is one of my favorite bands, and they speak in German. They sing in German. I don't even know what they're talking about, but I freaking love them.
Feel it.
You feel it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You feel it. And so, and yeah, when you add lyrics that mean a lot to you and get you through hard times, it's such an important piece of life for almost everybody. There's some weirdos out there that are not into music. I don't know what they do with their spare time or what they do when they're driving or whatever. But it's so unfortunate that the musicians don't get, and I know it's not about finances for a lot of people, but it still is so unfortunate that they don't get the financial backing that they deserve for what they do for the world, you know? It's crazy. It's so I'm like, what would happen if the music stopped because people couldn't afford to do it anymore? It's terrifying. Like I'm like, just take the earth at that point. Like
Be done with it. Yeah.
yeah,
It's troubling, and you think about all the wonderful troubadours throughout history that have helped so many people and guided them through the dark times or even just celebrated the good times. And, without artists, art and music are really key to any civilization. It's what's left behind typically. Um, and a lot can be said about how we treat that. With that said, I think throughout time, there's always going to be authors, artists, poets, musicians, um, unsung. Um, and, you can always ask why. And we might not ever have the answers, and that's okay. As long as it resonates with you. And if you share it and you help carry that light, then that light is an eternal light and you're carrying it forever and it goes through time. And that's really all you can do.
it's amazing. That's amazing to be able to leave your mark like that too. Not only obviously now when people, I mean, the last 4 years especially when people have really needed it, but also to know that even after you're gone, it still is going to be out there to help people.
That's
It's
it.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Pretty cool thing.
yeah, it's not about you, if for it when you live for others, you live forever. And that's a Peter Tosh line that's always stuck with me, and I'll never forget that, and it's yes, self-care is important and but at what cost too,
Yeah. Yeah,
So
well, there's definitely a difference between self-care and selfishness that is
yes.
all self-care all the time versus,
Right.
I mean, you got to find that balance and being able to give your energy to other people. You got to find that balance. But absolutely, I run a kindness page that I've had for 11 years. I just found out, I think about a month ago, I got a notice saying 11 years, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've had that page for that long. But
That's
I
awesome.
think it's so important to serve others. I think it's what makes the world go around, and it leaves an lasting impression. It has that ripple effect.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Charity and goodwill go a long way.
So going back to the tour, it was interesting that you were saying that because we watched a Death Clock Dragon Force Necrogoblicon show that I was like, that is the weirdest mix, but it was absolutely amazing. It was sold out. Death Clock was the headliner, of course, but Dragon Force sells out shows themselves. So I'm like, what are Dragon Force and Death Clock doing with each other? Like Necrogoblicon makes a little bit more sense with Death Clock, but
Yeah.
um so moving forward, assuming that you guys are planning on hopefully touring or piggybacking off of this, do you first of all, do you have plans? And it's okay if you can't tell me because I understand that. And second of
Yeah.
all, I know you're friends with some of the bands around there that are pretty big bands, like All That Remains, Kill Switch Engage. Is there a chance, like, can they like pick you guys up and say we're taking you guys with us, or do the labels have to decide who's going with who?
Yes.
If you can say.
Yeah, sure. So like what I can say is that a lot of times it's labels, it's management and booking agencies and what makes the most sense, right? Where are they going to get the most bang for their buck as if they've got a headliner that they manage that, draws a good amount. What what other acts are they bringing? Who's bringing something to the table? How many people are they bringing? How many more heads? Maybe they're also managing a new up and coming artist that makes sense to put on the bill. Bands can have a say sometimes, especially for like one-offs or sometimes holiday shows where if they're maybe doing like a 3-day weekend or like a holiday rager, things like that. Typically those are a little bit different, and like they'll have a little bit more control over those things or like those one-offs and things like that. And we've been fortunate in those like one-off situations where we've been able to play with a lot of our friends. And it's funny because I remember joking around. It was like Mike in Killswitch and I. The first time, well, not the first time, because we played with Killswitch in the original band before Thy Will Be Done was Cobalt. But but Thy Will Be Done, it was interesting because we toured together for the first time, touring together in Japan.
Oh
And we just
wow.
laughed because it was like, here we are on the other side of the world, like that's how we tour with each other. It was so funny.
How
So, and
cool
that,
though.
yeah. So we had a good chuckle about that. But yeah, it's they can have a say, but again, ultimately it's and I get it. It's the music business. It's an industry and they have to really think about what makes the most sense for them. And you know, and in like full disclosure, like are they gonna this band, this I Will Be Done band that hasn't done anything in so long? Does it make sense to take them out? Whereas like maybe you have this new up and comer and like they're like, they're young and they're going for it and they're like making headway and like they're managing them. And so it makes sense for them to put them on and maybe they'll do the gig for less money.
Right.
So there's so many different things and I get it. I respect it. There's all kinds of things. It, not to get into like the dirty, crazy gatekeeping of things too, because that exists too with some people, but
Absolutely.
we've been fortunate to be around people that love us and care about us, have been gracious to us and given us amazing opportunities, like the Des Fafaras of the world. Devil Driver took so many chances on Thy Will Be Done. Jamie Josta took chances on Thy Will Be Done. Rob Flynn took chances on Thy Will Be Done. We've been very, very fortunate in those regards of like some of our heroes. James Hetfield handpicking us was like still mind blowing that we got to play with Metallica.
Yeah.
So yeah, it when you're at different levels, you have a say, but when you're for the most part, if like maybe you're trying to promote your own new record and there's other bands that are promoting new records, then maybe they're hot. And that's the thing too. We're living in a day and age where like you can put out an album and 2 weeks later people have forgotten about it
Or
because
no, so true.
they're so inundated with all kinds of
So much.
different artists.
Mhm.
So and then now you're talking art versus content creation and pumping out quantity of just transmission, and you're constantly being in people's faces so they don't forget you, and you're in their ears so they don't forget you, and that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So with the album being out, 3 weeks, I think on Friday, I
Yeah,
believe is right. Um,
Friday, this Friday will make 3 weeks. Yeah.
yeah. How has, I mean, I obviously the pre-order response has been amazing. How has the response, just like with listening and stuff?
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Good.
I just got a report last night. So last week, the week before last week, whatever it was, we were the number one most added album to metal radio in North
Oh,
America.
amazing.
And
Oh, that's
then this
awesome.
past week, we were the number one most played album in metal on the NACC, which is the North America, what is it? North America College and Community Radio Report.
Oh,
So that's like all of North America with like college stations and active rock radio stations through North America. And it just blew me away. I didn't expect that. And then we were in the top 10 for Metal Contraband for last week. So, and I look at this list and we're the only independent band on this list.
that's amazing. Better get those shirts made, man.
Sure. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. It really well deserved.
Thank you.
I've listened to the album. I can't even tell you how many times. A, a
Thank you.
million times. And when I had first gotten, a little bit into it, I called my son into the room and I was like, dude, you're gonna love these guys. You're gonna want to listen to this. Because he's a little particular,
Sure.
I would say, about what I mean, he used to not like metal at all. He used to not like shows, and now we go to concerts like crazy.
Yes.
But I was like, I already know this one's gonna be one that's gonna fly to the top for him. And again, this kid is like a crazy shredder that music is his heart. Um, and so yeah, you guys are doing something really special, really unique. And the album is absolutely, absolutely incredible. I'm
Mhm.
not surprised by those numbers at all on this end. I know it's hard to be um I can't even think of the word right now. Um I know it's hard to see from the inside, and it's hard to not let your humbleness take over and see what you've created. But I'm glad that you guys are back. You guys are just killing it already, and I'm stoked to see what is to come, hopefully sooner and quicker.
Thank you. That means a lot. I really, truly appreciate that. That means a lot to myself, and I know I can speak for the rest of the guys to say thank you. We're just glad, people dig it and are resonating with it, and yeah, I'm just there's a lot in it. We worked hard on it, and there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of feelings, and a lot of energy in it. So it's transferring now, and we've transmuted all that energy and emotion into what you hear on Pillar of Fire.
Yeah, and that's a pretty, I would think, maybe not difficult for you guys because you're just so genuine and so raw with it out there. But I would think it would be difficult to emit that emotional, I don't know, that's not the right way of saying it because there's a lot of emotion and a lot of metal, but it's almost like it's a different kind of emotion that you guys are able to put out there than I think is even normal for metal, and that is good. That's a special thing.
Thank you.
I'm
That's
not explaining it well because
no,
I
I
don't even
know.
know if I can quite grasp what it is.
I I think I can understand what you're saying. I can feel what you're saying because and I get it. And it's a huge compliment to me because I'll be honest with you, like that same kind of emotional thing. Like, yeah, I'm wearing a Typo Negative shirt, and Typo Negative is one of those bands that, to me, when I listened to Typo, there was this like emotive sense to the lyrics and the music that I could identify with and I could feel, and it had this different emotion to it. It could be heavy and raw, it could be tongue in cheek and ridiculous, but it could be so heartbreaking and so emotive at the same time that, like, my gosh, Peter Steele,
Mhm.
you it was so perfect in every way. And so, we only have our own voice, and there's only one of you, there's only one of me, and one of everyone watching or listening in this space and time. And so often we're not made to feel brave enough to
Um,
follow our voice and to use our voice and to be authentic.
so that vulnerability.
Yeah. And we don't want to feel vulnerable. We want to just kind of go with the flow. But you're here and you have your voice and you're the only unique perspective. So use it and talk about it and share those things. And I think that with this music, it means so much to me that you pick up on the fact that there is emotion. It's different than because all we can do is just be thy will be done. We're not trying to be anyone else. Sure, we're inspired by other bands. We can emulate parts and like, oh, remember that cool part that sounds like Slayer? Like we'll go into that part that sounds like, that's musician talk. That's what you do. But like at the end of the day, hopefully you're trying to be yourself and you're not trying to imitate. You're trying to emulate, but you're trying to just be yourself. And the best compliment can be when someone hears it and goes, that's thy will be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that distinct. Yeah, absolutely. I had something I was gonna grasp on there, and I think I lost it. Mm. I have a weird. I had a couple songs I wanted to talk to you about too, but I
Yeah.
know I've already taken a so much of your time.
No worries. Whatever you want to ask.
I did want to ask about. I was gonna go into my end of the interview question because I don't know why this question popped in my head, and now that I've gotten to know you better, it seems so off from your personality. But I go like when something pops into my mind, whether it's a person and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to check on that person because they popped in my head for some reason or whatever. This question popped into my head, and it's gonna seem so weird when I get to it at this
Okay.
point, but I'm still gonna go with it because maybe there's a reason. But I did want to talk about Join or Die. You have the quote at the
Yeah.
beginning of it. That's I think it was like from a pirate book.
I'm sorry, the beginning quote?
The beginning quote. You have the quote before you jump into the song.
Yeah.
Tell me about why you chose that specific quote and tell me about the song.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So it's so funny. Yeah, so that quote, so we had written the song and Join or Die was one of those songs that kind of we had written and we talk about um how divisive things can feel and how weaponized language can be and in our opinion just kind of like separates people and keeps people divided rather than unified. And it was one of those things where we were kind of thinking about heavily the what that means and the implications that it has. And so we had gone through a couple of different iterations of Join or Die, and we we landed on the version that we have now. We had a couple of different versions before that, and then Kurt, our rhythm guitar player, he had this quote in particular that he was feeling like, man, I think we should do something with this. And yeah, well, there was something else. There was a different idea before that. Sorry, I'm like trying to remember
Oh,
now.
you're good.
But he ended up having this idea of basically like, hey man, I really think that like this would be cool. I think like, why don't we I think originally it was a movie quote that he had heard that he liked and he wanted to use. And I told him, I said, well, I don't want to use a quote. Like, I don't want to use a sample. Like, that was the
Mhm.
biggest thing. I was like, let's not use a sample. Let's try and be original with what we're doing. And so doing voice acting for a long time, I was like, why don't I just do it?
Of course you do voice acting. Oh my gosh. Let's just like pull another feather out of your cap.
So yeah. Yeah, well, my dad's a Renaissance man, so I try to like emulate that man and try to do the best I can. So it was one of those things where it was like, hey, why don't we do this thing ourselves and then we don't have to worry about somebody getting mad about using a movie quote. And that's at least kind of like how it came about. And so we did the thing. We did the damn thing. And so the quote, if I may, give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up the exact, 'cause I don't want to
Miss say it.
misconstrue this here. Yeah, yeah. So it was not the quote, but the uh it should be right here. Where the heck is it? Yes, here it is. And I always screw up the initials and I didn't want to reverse them. I always say LH, but it's HL.
Okay.
HL Menschken. So it was a quote from he. And he was a cultural critic and essay writer. And he was in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and just quite a savory character. And it was known for his philosophy and poignant opinions about things. And so when Kurt proposed this idea, and we saw it kind of like this almost pirate-esque, you know, um, you know, hoist the black flag and begins, slitting throats. It was kind of like, at some point you feel like, gosh, there are so many people that are like in these places of power or authority that are so far removed
Mhm.
from who we are as workers, citizens, as family people, and they're so disconnected from what we want and what we need, number one. And so it was kind of this like proverbial middle finger to the powers that be of
Mhm.
just like, no, like, like, stop doing this, and it was kind of just like, I wholeheartedly believe in healthy dialogue. I believe in differences of opinion. I believe that you should exercise those differences of opinion and try and learn a new perspective. We get so caught up in these echo chambers when we
Yeah.
refuse to see something from a different perspective. We don't
Mhm.
know the answers. We don't know all the
Mhm.
answers. And even from, I try not to delve in social political discourse.
It's so
Save,
tough not to. Especially
yeah,
on your
right,
path. It's so hard
right.
not to.
Yeah, and I remember just like for me, it was just like, I think I even said it in like one of the press releases or like an interview of just being so disheartened by there was like a debate that had happened, and it felt so like trivial and trite that we're focusing on the wrong things. We're getting caught up in the minutia and the drama of everything, and it's just so ridiculous because you talk to most people, and most people all want the same things for the most part,
Right.
but it just becomes so divisive, and
Mhm.
language then is weaponized, and it keeps us so divided and less. We're focused on our differences instead of what unifies
Yeah.
us and brings us together. And so, yeah, that's kind of long story short of what we kind of come up with. And it was very, yeah, very Buccaneer,
It's
high,
like an
high.
anthem song too. I can see people really if you do it live, I can see people really catching on to that song and singing
Oh,
along to it.
right on. Thank you. Yeah, it has definitely some anthematic feels to it. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it's growing up like listening to metal and metal, punk, hardcore, whatever in like the 80s and 90s. There was always like these like overtones of just like F the man, the
Oh
us against
yeah,
them, and like it just like fuels you, and you're like, yeah, what about us, what about me, and what about my friends and my family,
right.
and it's
The
kind of
people
like
that the
that,
people that matter.
yeah, like I'm I'm ticked
And
off. I'm
then,
I'm aggravated. I'm mad, and I'm calling it out and like, screw you. This
yeah,
sucks. Like, what are you doing?
right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, important message too. I mean, I think there again, like you said, there's so much more that unifies us, but it's hard to see when they're playing on emotions. Anytime the emotional brain takes over, the logical thinking shuts down, and
yeah,
you see it a lot right now.
yeah. And it's scary because you don't want to lose critical thinking, but it's scary in a time. And again, maybe we should think about like what kind of in one of our songs, Echoes and Narcissists. I dive
Mhm.
into this a little bit with just the advent of artificial intelligence as well as social media and just the narcissism and echo chambers that it has created, and how we've gotten away from critical thinking. And if we've not all of us, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of folks have come to be so reliant on Google or like Wikipedia or like these things, and not, yeah, it's not always accurate. Someone could have changed that literally right before you read it. And
Right. Yeah. What the
or it's a sponsored, yeah, or
right. Right.
it's a sponsored post. So whatever you're seeing was sponsored and paid for, so you see that first. And
Hmm.
so that's happened for hundreds of years. That's always been a thing where there's someone is going to protect their maybe their ideals or their agendas or things like that. So you have to be you, the main point is that don't be afraid of critical thinking. Don't
Hmm.
be afraid of like finding out for yourself and not just accepting things at face value. And then, actually have some substance to stand on and a foundation to have an open conversation. And
Yeah.
that someone can have a difference of opinion in you. That's fine. That's beautiful. That's great. Those are checks and balances. We
Hmm.
need that. It
Hmm.
holds us together. Feedback is a good thing.
Yeah.
Feedback is great. That's how we improve. That's how we move forward and we can become
Evolve.
better. But the thing
Go up
is
the stairway.
right. We get so stuck in this circle of what's comfortable. And so we're so afraid of stepping outside of that circle that we're vulnerable if we step out. So you know, I don't want to step out and I don't want to necessarily have something. I don't, and then we see all this confirmation bias that occurs when people are so afraid to step out of that and they don't realize, hey, like kind of an echo chamber. You're not changing your perspective on things. It's like, well, no, it's right. This is the only way. It's like, is it though? And
Right.
and just be open to it and like have open dialogue and be kind, be friendly and think
Yeah.
about it. But like listen, actually
Hmm.
listen, not wait to talk.
Absolutely. Yeah. What is that? Listen with the intent to hear, not with the intent to reply. Something like that. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's so important.
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of switching into a weird gear here. Prelude to Apostasy. The
Yeah.
video reminds me of The Ring.
Oh, okay. Right on. Yeah.
Best way because I think that that video it's so artistic and it makes you think even though you're like what is happening? This is like, a lot of interesting things, but it's one of those kind of like artistic thinking things. Um, yeah, tell me a little bit about that, and then I'll segue into my last question so I don't take up your whole night because I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, so the idea for the video is the Kushlov effect and Jacob Chariot of Black Moth. I really love his style and how he goes about things. And so that style of film has been around for 100 years. It was really prevalent in Russia, like propaganda films in the early, 1920s. And there's something to be said about like these juxtaposed images to elicit, a visceral reaction.
Mhm.
And,
That
and
it
that,
does.
thank you. And that was the intent behind it, and it's fascinating how desensitized people can be with things, whether it's death or harm, whether it is all these things that we don't think about because of maybe the perspective we've had, and you can have one person who would think nothing of swatting a fly, whereas maybe someone else might say, well, I'm going to catch that fly. I'm going to release it outside because life is life. And what if I was that fly and someone swatted me? And, so there's that parallel, but also the everything about the interconnectedness of life and belief systems and how people are thinking and perceiving the world. It's really a call to that, and the chorus is, anti-violence, anti-silence. This is my resistance, because music for me is how I'm able to resist these things. And like, I don't I don't necessarily think that we should keep resorting to barbarism, in 2024, going into 2025. We're humans, and the thing that separates us again is that love and understanding and that connectedness. So, what is the disconnect? Help me understand that.
Yeah.
Why aren't we able to elevate ourselves to a higher level of consciousness to get above that? Because there are people who choose to keep us feeling afraid of each other and dividing us and keeping themselves making money through fear and all these other different things because they're protecting their ideals and protecting what they've created or maybe their ancestors have created and keeping it. And in my opinion, it kind of can sometimes feel like it comes down to these class wars more than anything. And keep the peasants mad at each other while we
Mhm.
sit here on the hill and we watch from afar.
Yeah, unfortunately, very true. And the most frustrating thing about it is it's so obvious, and we can, not maybe all of us, but we can see it. But it's like, how do we stop this rat race? How do we stop this hamster wheel? You just
Yeah.
one small thing at a time, one kind gesture, with a
Yeah.
person at a time, or music that evokes emotion and thinking, and that's about which is good. I mean, it's enough. It doesn't feel like it's enough when you
Mm,
look sometimes
sure.
when you look at it from a narrower lens, but when you look at a bigger lens, then it is enough. But it can be disheartening to see that's what continues to happen, what continues to go on when
Right
you
on.
know that the answer is kindness and love and coming together and all that stuff.
Yeah. Right on.
So my weird question, this is gonna seem so out of place now. Oh my goodness. But I'm
Can't
just
wait.
gonna go with it. I'm just gonna go with it and I'll cut it out if it goes horribly. And that's the magic of editing.
Right on.
Um, if you were to come across a serial killer in their prime, who would it be and why? Why
Wait, what
that
was it?
question came to my mind, I was driving, listening to the album, going to pick up my dog that I just had to put down a week and a
Um,
half ago. Went to go pick up his ashes. And for whatever reason, that very morbid question came into my mind. So, a serial killer in their prime, if you had to happen upon one of them, who would you choose and why?
like to meet
Like,
them?
not necessarily, well, I mean, you have to have some kind of interaction with them, so not necessarily like you guys are going to sit down to have coffee, but and you maybe don't even know that that's who that is, like it just,
Hmm.
yeah, just in a quick
Huh.
interaction, or yeah,
So
it's a
like
weird question.
that I like if so like I would hold on, let me see if I try to understand the question
I Well,
a little
it's
bit
it's not a normal question. I don't even
better.
know if
No,
I
that's fine. That's
understand the
great. I'm
question
not
itself.
normal, so it's okay. So it's if I could have an interaction with any serial killer, who would it be? Is that
Yeah, like you had to. So you
I
had to. It's
had to
not it's
had
not like you're choosing it. It's not like you're like, I want to get to know this
oh,
person, or I want to, although you probably, because you're a deep thinker and because you're an emotional person, you probably do have that fascination of how people like that work, and why and what has
hmm,
happened to
yeah.
create that and all that. But yeah, if you had to have some kind of interaction with, and you don't, and again, you don't even necessarily have to know that that's who they are, or that's what their nighttime job is, but
Yeah. Right. What do you do by night? By
right,
day, I sell insurance. By night, I'm the Night Stalker. Yeah,
exactly,
I mean, I guess historically, I Jack the Ripper. I don't know, like, I
yeah,
get maybe like going back a ways. I don't
yeah.
know. Uh,
I mean, we know he had to have been a very intelligent person with, well,
right.
maybe not intelligent, maybe that's not the right word, but skilled with a scalpel.
Yeah, right. I guess I don't know. It's interesting. I think in the 90s, I mean, oh gosh, I don't know. I think growing up, it was I always wanted to better understand the Unabomber. I don't know
Hmm.
if he's classified as a serial killer, but he was like a serial
I mean,
bomber.
he killed a
He
lot of
did,
people. I
he
think
sure
that,
did.
yeah,
But his like whole like anti-technology standpoint, I'd be curious to hear his thoughts on
yeah,
artificial intelligence. I
yeah,
don't know.
right.
I don't know. I would just be like conversation wise, not that I'm glorifying any of these
Of
people.
course. No, I know. That's why I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
after I've gotten to know who you are, it seems like such a bizarre question
Oh,
to ask
y-
you, but
oh no, it's okay. Yeah, it's funny because like It's interesting because like so many people love like true crime and like horror and things like that, and like I like classic horrors, but like I'm not like a it's I'm just I don't know, I like prefer documentaries or like I don't know, like classic 80s action films. Like,
Mm.
like I'm a huge Jean-Claude Van Damme fan. I don't know why. I just love Van Damme. I just do.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
love Van Damme.
That's
Yeah, I
so-
love Sylvester Stallone, like whether it's Rambo or Rocky,
Yeah.
uh, Schwarzenegger with like Commando. Like, I don't know, just
Yeah.
like yeah. So like I don't know, like those like action films, but like the deep films, um, yeah, I've got my favorites. Like Blue Velvet's like David Lynch, really, really, really good one.
I've never seen that one.
There's a lot of good films out there. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't gravitate necessarily to like the slasher films.
That
I
doesn't
like
surprise me.
thrillers, psychological thrillers, but
Yeah, me too. That doesn't surprise me with you between the anxiety and the empath. That doesn't surprise me. When my anxiety is really, really bad, I have to steer clear, even though I've grown up watching horror and I am fascinated by all that stuff. My undergrad degree is in psychology, and so I love cult documentaries. They're some of my favorites. I just want to understand. And I want to
yes,
make sure that I am not going to fall into that. I like to think that
I won't
I
ever.
exactly, but then you know that it can happen to anybody, and you see it
Yeah,
in different forms, like you had said before, the echo chamber. You see different forms of that, and so I'm like, I just really want to understand it. So when my anxiety is under control, I can handle all that stuff. And lately, I've been super super fascinated with all that stuff. When my
really.
anxiety is bad, I can't do it because then I have nightmares. I don't sleep. I get insomnia. I like it consumes me to where I can't do it.
Oh yeah, I wholeheartely can align with that. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking
Ah,
an incredible amount of time with me. You are a fascinating, fascinating person. Like I said, I could talk to you for hours. I want to have coffee with you. I want to go have a beer with you. Like I could just talk to you. We have a lot of the same concepts, thoughts, we think a lot of the same way. I cannot get my words out tonight. Um, and it's cool. It's cool to find someone um that you have that similarities with, because it's not super common. So thank you for letting me take so much of your freaking night. The album is absolutely incredible. I can only imagine that it's going to keep going up. I'm really excited to see what you guys do next. And hopefully I will chat with you either before the new album with the other band comes out or another
yeah.
time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It sincerely means the world to me, and I know I could speak for the rest of the guys. Thank you for, showcasing what we're doing and just caring about what we're doing, and we really appreciate the support. It really means so much to me.
Get those shirts made.
You got it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thank you. You as well. You take care. Thank you.
Bye bye.